Right, welcome back to another episode of Guest of the Month. Today I'm joined by Richard Bamber from Anthony's Travel. Thank you for joining today.
Thanks, Davina. Thanks for having me on.
Let's get straight into it. So, can you tell me a bit about how your business started and what challenges did you face to get to where you are today?
Yes, certainly. Anthony's Travel actually officially started in 1985, but I had an interest as a kid. I was obsessed with coaches, and there used to be a coach company around the corner from our family house, and I used to go around clean the vehicles for the drivers. They used to give me a bit of pocket money. At that time, I was probably one of the richest kids in school because my pockets were full of bronze and silver. So I was a lot thinner than I am then, but I probably weighed a lot more because my pockets were weighed down with metal and all these bronze coins. My father had an interest in transportation. His cousins were hauliers. He was always fascinated again with planes, trains, automobiles, as the film title goes. My father actually repossessed a transit minibus, and that was just for the use mainly for the family. We had quite a large family with extended family. With my nan used to come out with us and her dog and so on. So we thought it'd be quite a handy vehicle to use for a bit. So we were using this on a family basis, but then neighbours would naturally ask, "Oh, could you do us a favour, Tony? Could you drop us off at the airport? Could you do this?" And unemployment in the 1980s was extremely high, 3.5 million people. There was a lot of problems with, there was a youth opportunity schemes because there's all these youths coming out of school with absolutely nothing to do. So we got the first minibus in 1985. We become a licensed operator on a restricted license then. And then they developed it from there. So it went basically from one minibus that we run as a part-time little business from our family home, and the office was a spare bedroom in the house. And then it just grew from there. And actually, a lot of people think the business was handed to me by my father, when in fact, really, my father come to work for me and my mother because he carried on in full-time employment till 1994.
Yeah, wow, impressive. And what services do you provide now for your customers?
Yeah, the one thing about being from Halton is Halton's in one of its, I think it's in the UK's top 50 deprived areas. So it's not the most affluent of areas. So we've always done a variety of hires. We've never just specialised in one particular segment of the sector, possibly because there hasn't been sufficient demand. So we've been what has been a traditional coach company where we do our school contracts. And the private hires that come with schools. We do bits of tour work for various tour companies, in international visitors, national visitors, lots of senior citizens hires, lots of hires for businesses, doing contracts every day. We work for Capita, we work for the NHS. So we've got a great mix of work. Yeah, it hasn't been a great time for anybody. And, you know, not every single operator out there has my full respect because it's been a tough time for all. And to see your family businesses sometimes fold in front of you and there's nothing that you can do must be heartbreaking. So I'm very humble in the fact that we've been able to keep going throughout it. And hopefully now we're seeing the other side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the big question I have, which I think everyone wants to know, which I think you know this one, is why are the vehicles all pink? What's the reasoning? What's the story?
The colour is actually called apple blossom, and it's the funniest apple colour I've ever seen. I've never seen a colour like that on an apple anyway. You know, they don't sell any Lidl or Asda, for instance. We went down to a coach sales company in High Wycombe one Sunday, me and my father, to look at a little 25-seater Mercedes minibus. There was this Starliner coach, and I can remember my father looking at me and saying, "Do you see what I see?" And it was a Starliner that nobody had seen for ages. And we said to the mechanic who was there, who'd opened up for us in a day, he said, "Oh yeah, it's just been repossessed. It's been parked up in a barn for 18 months. It literally only come in yesterday." And the following morning, my father gets on the phone to the finance company and makes what was comparatively a bit of a daft offer. But the daft offer was accepted because I think it'd just been a nightmare and he just wanted to just get rid of it. It was just enough. And then it became so noticeable, but it is a distinct colour. Some people don't like it. Some people do like it. I've not got a problem with that at all. The one thing about it is everybody notices it. So everybody sees an Anthony's travel vehicle when they're on the road. And sometimes it's not good to fit in. It's better to stand out. And that's our motto, really, to stand out. And don't be afraid of standing out. So the colour scheme, the strong branding, and, you know, our personalities as well, hopefully bring that out.
No, you definitely stand out. And I think it's great to have your brand on the road. People know you instantly from the pink vehicles.
Yes, yeah, they do. We've actually done a number of weddings over the years because people see them and say, oh, we like them pink coaches. You get brides that are obsessed with the colour pink. So we've done weddings that have actually been really outside our catchment area, but the bride has been obsessed that they want them coaches, which has been great. And then also one of the other weddings that we did a while ago, he's a friend of ours, was Tony Bellew, the boxer. And Tony actually, by his family and everybody, is known as Anthony. And he had this wedding planner that was doing all the wedding plans. And she rang up and said, I have found just the coach company for you. It's called Anthony. And I thought it would suit because your name is Anthony.
Now, recently you've bought an EVM minibus from us. Can you tell me a bit about how the EVM product has benefited your business?
Yes, certainly. We've dealt now with Danny since, I think it's about 2013, 2014. So we are probably now on about, I think, our 6th EVM vehicle. The one thing about EVM is you know exactly what you're getting. The quality of the vehicles is always superb. And if there is an issue, which never really is, but with anything that's mechanical, you can have minor little problems. The guys are there on the phone. Nothing is too much trouble. So for me, it's been a no-brainer over the years to keep on coming back to the guys because I can have a good laugh with them as well. They know my sense of humour. I know them. But ultimately, they know my business because it's easy to sell somebody a vehicle, but it's actually what happens afterwards. It's the after sales and it's the service. And it's sometimes how you deal with when you've got an issue as well, because it's very easy to make a sale, to sell a vehicle. But if you have a problem, it's how you deal with it afterwards and that sort of service. And whenever we've had any little issues at all, and have only been little minor issues, the guys have been absolutely first class. But the build quality, everything that I've wanted has been done. So I just can't argue with the service. It's not always the cheapest vehicle out there. I'm sure there's a lot of cheaper ones out there if you shop around, but ultimately it's the quality of the product as well. So the overall package, I look at it as the best value.
That's good to hear. You've been open and honest in the past about your mental health, and I think people can relate to that a lot. What have you done over this tough time to keep motivated and to keep going?
Yeah, it's, that's been a bit of a concern of me actually, for not so much the staff members now, but I worry about other coach operators because we've now gradually come to these workplaces where we're looking out for our employers, and that's something that should have happened anyway. But too many companies are making the emphasis on the policy and not the people at all. It's very easy to have a mental health policy in place and mental health first aiders, but it's what you actually do. My concern has been quite often these shoulders here have had many of our staff over the years coming to us with tears, and we've burdened the weight of their problems and hopefully made a difference in their lives. But what happens with the senior managers? Who do they go to? And you've got all these coach operators that have been under amazing stress for the last few months. Well, it's more than a few months now. It's getting on for 2 years. The stress level they've been at has been unbearable. And I've been contacted individually by a number of operators, ones that have ceased trading, ones that are still going, just asking how I cope because they're aware of the issues that I've had. And it is hard. And that is my concern. Who looks out for them people? Who looks at the operators? I have to say, I think, touch wood, I've got through it okay. With my other bouts of depression over the years, I've realised some of the trigger points. I walk my dogs frequently. Anybody that sees the Anthony's Travel Facebook pages and sees the dogs around the roses in the office at the moment, I have 2 dogs and I adore them. and I have a good network of friends as well. Not always connected to the industry, but people actually that understand me, understand how I think. Some of them are businessmen. One of them's a district nurse. They're just all lovely people, and they look out for my best interests. And I meet my friend, and we go for a little wander. I've got wonderful wife, Dawn, and family around it. It's important to have good people. All I say to any operator out there at the moment is, if they're struggling, do speak to people, because it can make a difference. And then little things, like I say, reaching out can make such a change. So yeah, it's a big thing for me. It's very important because, as I say, I've experienced it myself. And I'm sure there's going to be other waves as well. Having your own company, being under any pressure like that, can be immense. And when you're somebody that cares, and when you're somebody that worries about things, it can sometimes get too much. So my word to anyone watching this is, reach out.
Yeah, it's a very important message. Very important. So yeah, who do you look up to as your role models?
When I was younger, I suppose I had quite a few role models, and you see people, successful businessmen. You would see when I was much younger, the coaches I cleaned were Selwyn's coaches. So Selwyn obviously became a role model within the coaching industry. I also idolise Freddie Laker, which was the pioneer of low-cost travel, and he opened transport up to the masses, air travel up to the masses. Fantastic story. But as you get a little bit older, you realise, and I've been quite fortunate as well, some of my sporting icons and role models I've been very fortunate through boxing connections. I've met a lot of boxers, and you realise that some of these people that you put on a pedestal, they're really not much different than me and you. So to have a role model in that respect, then you realise that it's not quite as what you think at the age of 18. As you move forward, these people, they all have their weaknesses. So I pinch little bits of people. I still look now to these days. So I see certain coach operators think, hey, he's a gentleman, he's a great guy, I love his operation and so on. Not envious at all, absolutely not. But then you see things and you think, that's a good person to look up to. I also then, I'm a huge Beatles fan, always have been. And the Beatles, I think, have been so inspirational in my life, their music and that. So I think they have actually been, it sounds a bit cliche really, but I suppose, that's been the soundtrack of my life. So I certainly like history of the Beatles. Again, reading about Freddie Laker, which I have been recently. I got his new book the other week. But then also one of the biggest role models was my father. His attitude, his work attitude was just, nobody's going to give you it. So go out there and work. And one thing my dad was a grafter. He had a host of part-time jobs because he was determined to give his family the best that he could.
Sounds like being content, and then also having like pieces of puzzles from every person that you've kind of dealt with or looked up to in the past.
It's absolutely, that's a great way to put it. It's like a jigsaw puzzle with different bits that you say, I take that little bit from him, and that's good. And I like her attitude and how she deals with it, her compassion. And I've got friends like Paul Coates, McCarran Coates. I think Paul is doing so well for himself, and he originally worked at Gauntlet Insurance, and he's now got his own brokerage. And he's going from strength to strength and winning different awards as well. And to see that, not only to see myself doing well, but to see people that I've worked with over the years to achieve as well, that's great. And I'm also big friends with Backhouse Jones solicitors. Backhouse Jones, I've seen them grow as well from a little company to now, I think there's about 60, 70 employees. And Laura Hadzik from Backhouse Jones, she's like she's our backroom staff, basically. Everything that Anthony's Travel do, if it's on a legal basis, on compliance, we always run it by Laura, and I trust her judgment implicitly. So there's lots of people in the industry that I look up to that I think, they do a fantastic job. And there's a lot of people out there, and we don't always hear about it enough because we get a bit obsessed with just talking about bad times, and there's been a lot of bad times recently. And if it isn't COVID, it's PSVAR, it's electrification of vehicles. There seems to be a lot that actually takes a shine away from the good work that people are doing.
Absolutely. I think shining the light on positive news is brilliant. It should be mentioned more often. And it's a community at the end of the day. We want to celebrate everyone's hard work. and get names recognised. How did you, we've briefly touched on this, but how did you come across EVM at the start?
I knew of Danny from previous businesses, and I actually knew Matt Thompson as well. So at the time, we had already started entering the disabled market back in 2011 with our first accessible coach. And not long after that, we wanted to follow that up with an accessible minibus. And I was speaking to Danny, and he was able to provide a nice little executive minibus, because I was quite conscious of the fact that I didn't want the vehicle to look any different or have that sort of social service feel that some disabled access vehicles do. And that's when I reached out to Danny. Shortly afterwards, Danny, when I was speaking to Danny, he said, I've got a guy that knows you. He's just started work, and that was Matt. And Matt had sold us a minibus, one of the previous companies he worked at, and then we've just gone on ever since. So each time I told him what I wanted, and he dealt with it. I always have a bit of a laugh on the end of the phone, do a little bit of bargaining with them. We always know we're going to get there. Yeah, great company. I can't speak highly enough about them.
Do you have any exciting or future plans that you've got for Anthony's Travel coming up?
That's quite an interesting question. One of the things that we have done is we've got a team coach at the moment that's currently in the latter stages of conversion. That's at AD Coach Systems. So that'll be entering our fleet. We operate already. We've been in a very fortunate situation that accessible transport has been the key to our operation anyway, one of the main parts of our operation. However, we've got the last couple of vehicles now that are having PSVAR conversions. The last one now is in the factory, so it gives us a fleet then of accessible coaches, or we're ready to rumble. There's no problem at all on that. We're going to keep on investing. Technology is a thing as well. I think technology, sometimes the coach industry has always had a little bit of a reluctance to embrace technology, and that's sometimes been at our detriment. So for me, it was a no-brainer to invest in that sort of technology. I've always been a bit of a geek on some of these things. So we've got Alco locks in the coaches, which again, we were one of the first to have them in. CCTV was rolled out to our fleet in 2007, one of the very first companies to have trackers. We had a website up and running in 1999. And we keep moving, we keep raising the goalposts. So I think embracing technology is important. And if you can use it in your business to make it more streamlined, to make it more efficient, that can only be a good thing. And that's where we've been lagging. So yeah, we're going to continue on the investments on that. I've got no ambition to grow Anthony's Travel any bigger than what it is. I'm quite happy with the size it is, as long as I can keep doing the things that I want to do out of life. That's what's important. And I also think if I go bigger and bigger, which I've had the opportunities to do, and I've had the opportunities to go into partnerships with people, the product becomes diluted. People know who they're dealing with. We've got real good relationships with clients, customers, suppliers. And I think that side of the business would be affected if I grown it. It could be done, but I don't have the ambition to do it. I'm just going to carry on as we do, keep evolving, keep updating the vehicles, keep looking at new potential markets as markets open in different areas, looking at building projects within the area. The Northwest now, we've got this the northern region. We're part of the Liverpool City region. There's massive investment going on in Liverpool at the moment, and we want to be part of that.
Now tell me, what is one quote that you live by?
Yeah, there's a friend of mine told me a quote a while back. He is a good friend of mine, a guy called Kerry Case. He's quite an interesting character. He ran a nutrition company. He was an ex-Mr. Great Britain bodybuilder, heavily involved with a number of the boxers. And he says, don't judge other people by your own standards, as you will only end up disappointed. And I think that's the thing. We sometimes expect too much of others, and we expect people to have the same attitudes and the same ethos that we do. And it's very, very hard to actually find somebody that you have that synergy with, that you have that relationship with. So again, and we all become disappointed. We become disappointed in work, and we become disappointed at home if somebody's not singing off that same hymn sheet. And we can spend too long trying to judge them again by the standards that we expect. The second quote I like is by the Beatles, and it's, "And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make," which is on the end of the Abbey Road album. I think it's the last recording that they did. I think that's a fantastic quote to actually say. Paul McCartney quote, when he comes onto the stage at every live event, that is played before he comes on. And it is just a very simplistic, maybe a nice way to look at life. But it is about how you treat others, is what comes back to you, reap what you sow, all them sort of cliches that we say. But yeah, I think that's a great way to live your life.
Both very relatable.
Yeah, I like to think so, yes. Yeah.
Well, it's been brilliant speaking to you and listening to your ideas and thoughts. It's been such an uplifting conversation, so thank you. You've been, a great guest, and we look forward to seeing what's next for you guys.
Thank you, Davina. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.